look on some of those kids' faces, the freedom that I see in their eyes, the way that they're invited and celebrated and needed, that is the heart of Young Life. And I hope that you get to see that throughout the night tonight. Here's the thing, is that as a Young Life leader, I'm a Young Life leader, hang out with kids at a local school. You long for your kids to have that joy in their eyes and that freedom. But the reality of the world that they're in right now is not very often you get to see that joy. It doesn't always look like that. They are growing up in a world that is crazy. And it's crazy for us, and it's crazy for them. I don't really need to stand here and convince you guys of that. I know you all know that. But we just long to see kids free like that. Man, do we long for that. I want to share a quick story with you. This is a personal story from my own childhood. And so growing up, I was a very sensitive kid, I would say. And whenever I felt rejected or if I didn't do well on tests or I got in trouble with my parents or teachers or whatever it was, my MO was to run into my room and lock the door for hours and hours and hours, okay? So I would do this, not just this was years, okay, guys? And I would do it for such a long time that my parents started this whole routine, okay, code orange, Erin's in her room, everyone take your positions, get ready. And my younger sisters, why didn't they just take the lock off? I don't know. But anyways, makes for a good story. So my sisters would dress up in play clothes and go outside my window and dance outside the window to try to make me laugh. And my dad would go into the garage where he had this meter stick that I brought today, and it had a message written on the meter stick, and this is what it says. "We love you so much!" Exclamation point. XOXOXO. Heart with an arrow through it. It's right there, guys. "Please come out, Erin. We love you. OXOXOX." This is the original. If you need to see it up close and personal later, you can. And what my dad would do with this stick is while I was locked inside my room, he would lay on the hallway floor and he would stick it under the door and like this. If you can't see me, just imagine it. Like this. "Erin, we love you. Are you ready to come out yet? We're having dinner soon. Aren't you hungry?" And he would do this laying on the floor. My dad's a very large Italian man. I just wish that you could really picture this for yourself. But and I wouldn't come out, but then he'd come back a few minutes later and do it again. Always patient and reminding me of what I was missing out on. "We're your family. We love you. Come out. We're going to play this game. We know you want to come out. Please, Erin." So they would do this over and over. I'm sure at age 15 it probably started to get old. I don't know. But I love this story because I don't think this is just an Erin in middle school thing. I think it so depicts the human heart and also the heart of kids. That when the world gets scary and hard, which it is for most people, that we run into our rooms and we lock the doors and we don't think that anyone could really love us or anyone could really want us, and if they really knew what was inside of me, there's no way that they would want me. And even growing up in a family where my parents loved me, this brokenness, I already knew that feeling. I feel like that's something I see in the lives of kids that I wanted to share with you guys, that kids are more disconnected now than they've ever been. That it's when I ask kids, "How was your summer? What'd you do?" They say, "Oh, it was pretty good. What'd you do?" "I was in my room a lot. I watched a lot of series on Netflix. I played a lot of video games. But how was your summer? What did you do? I was in my room a lot. I hear this time and time again. I heard this stat recently, okay? And I hate to do these things because I don't want to be like kids these days, but I'm just going to say it anyways, okay? So this is a stat I recently heard. That the average kid spends less time outside than a prisoner. And at first I was like, no way. And then I'm like, an hour? Yeah, probably, Less time outside in the sun and being a kid running free than someone who's locked up. And I just think of that feeling of being a kid and feeling like I need to be closed in my room by myself, disconnected from other people. Does anyone have kids in this room and you know exactly what I'm talking about? This is the world that Young Life leaders are entering into. There's this cultural sense of homelessness and not belonging. And kids are hiding in their rooms, and they need someone to lay on the floor and swing a stupid stick that tells them that it is safe to come out. That is what you're going to get to hear about tonight. First, I want to share with you a story from Mark. And the reason why I love Young Life is that they did not make up this method. They literally look at the way that Jesus interacted with people. And it's like, all right, let's go do that. Let's go show up in people's worlds. Let's do that. We can do that. This specific story starts in Mark chapter 2. Mark chapter 2, second chapter. He's already healed a bunch of people, raised someone from the dead maybe. He did not mess around. He's with his disciples, and he goes to a house where it's packed to the gills with people, waiting to hear what he's going to say. He's just creating this commotion. People are watching can he really heal these things? Is he really who he says he is? There's some critics in the room. Who is this guy? So here we go. A few days later, when Jesus entered Capernaum, the people had heard that he had come home. They gathered in such a large number that there was no room left, not even outside the door, and he preached the word to them. People were hearing about Jesus. Is he who they say he is? Can he actually heal me? So men came, bringing to Jesus a paralyzed man, and he was carried by 4 of them. So there was a paralyzed man on a mat, which a mat in this time is like his bed, essentially. And 4 of his friends who could walk carried him to see Jesus. Back in that day, even today, it's very uncommon that able-bodied people have this close friendship with someone with a disability. And even in this time, when that was even more culturally unheard of, there's these 4 friends carrying this man. I wonder if he wanted to go. Or I wonder if they're like, hey, we're bringing your bed if that's how we got to take you. Let's go. We're going. Or I wonder if he was begging them to go. I have no idea. Picks up the bed mat and carries him. Carries him a mile, carries him 60 miles for days. I don't know. And then they get to the house. The house is completely full. And there's barriers to get him to Jesus. So they climb up on the roof. And they pull back the shingles or twigs, I don't know. And then lower him down the ceiling. Talk about being creative in the ways that you bring someone to Christ. When you hit a barrier to go up the ladder and dig a hole whatever way you have to go. When Jesus saw their faith, He said to the paralyzed man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." So now some teachers of the law were sitting there thinking to themselves, "Why does this fellow talk like that? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" So there's the critics in the room. Jesus knew what they were thinking. He says, "What's easier for me to say? Your sins are forgiven? Or take up your mat and walk? What's easier? For me to heal your soul? Or for me to change your circumstances?" Don't worry, I'll do both. He looked at the man and he said, "I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home." He got up, took his mat, and walked out in full view of them all. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." The faith of 4 friends who knew what Jesus could do, and they would go to any lengths to carry him in his bed to Jesus. This is what Young Life leaders are trying to do with kids in this community. I'm going to invite up a friend of mine. Her name's Yerin. As she's coming up, she is a Jenison graduate, and she was a student of Karina White, and that's how she got involved at Jenison. Give Yerin a round of applause. Come on up. Here's one thing you should know, is that Yerin is a freshman at Michigan State now, and she came back after her class tonight. Your mom came and got you?
Yeah.
Right? And then came back, and then you have to go back tonight?
No, I'm actually sleeping for one night, but yeah.
Okay, then going back tomorrow, right? Okay, but got picked up right out of her class because it was so important for her to be here and for her to share what God has done in her life through this. So give it up for Yerin.
Thank you. Hi, how is everyone doing tonight? Good, okay, that's good. Okay, so my name is Yerin Han, and I'm a Jenison graduate attending Michigan State University studying in environmental studies and sustainability. I have 2 amazing parents, and I have a really sassy but caring younger sister who goes to Jenison Junior High. I was introduced to Young Life by the one and only Karina White, yeah, who was and still is one of the Young Life leaders in Jenison. At the start, she had to practically drag me to club each week on Mondays because I told myself that I needed to prioritize my commitment to my extracurriculars along with my education. Who needs that? But Karina was done hearing my excuses, and with the amount of rides that she has given me to and from club, she is practically my second mother. But if Karina had not convinced me to start going to Young Life, I would not have known how much one person can impact another. And with Young Life, I was able to take away so many life lessons in ways that were so personal that it made a significant impact on how I live my life. I want to take this time to share with you 3 lessons that I have learned so far from my experience with what Young Life had to offer. First of all, Young Life has taught me how to be inclusive with everyone. The first time I interacted with the people of Young Life, I definitely felt like they were incredibly kind. I even thought to myself, there is absolutely no way that these people are this nice, and I even got a little suspicious. But at clubs and camps, it is obvious to recognize that their kindness stems from being inclusive, and it builds self-confidence in others. This was even more significant to me because growing up, I moved schools several times, and it was not easy because no matter how long I've been part of a group, I felt left out. It was either I was not there at the beginning of their friend group, or they didn't know me as well to invite me over to their sleepover. I was also self-conscious a lot of the time because I was Korean. Don't get me wrong, I am very proud to be Korean, and I love that my parents wanted to keep our culture alive while living in America. But it was not always easy carrying that lunchbox to the school cafeteria with the distinct smells of Korean food I loved so much, only to be told that it smelled like poop or it smelled really gross. Gosh, I'm not really teary, I don't cry. By my peers. I cannot emphasize how many times I've told my mom that I just wanted a peanut butter jelly sandwich, like everyone else. Being involved in Young Life, I encountered so many people who were genuinely interested in who I was. Like I said, I was slightly weirded out by how nice everyone was. But I always felt welcomed. I always felt like I had to act a certain way in front of people, but Young Life was a place where I knew I could be true to who I was and not be looked down upon because of it. I finally knew what it felt like to be welcomed, and I wanted to be inclusive with everyone. Oh, okay. The second lesson I learned is the power of the community. While I continued to show up to more clubs, there were many announcements about summer camp at Castaway. But the price of the camp is not cheap. And it took a lot of convincing before I finally committed. Karina was willing to help me out through the area fundraisers to raise more money with camp expenses. Okay, with that being said, at the annual 5K fundraiser, I had merely signed up for myself and maybe one other person I got a pledge from. But before the race had started, Karina came up to me and gave me a piece of paper that had more than 10 pledges of people that had contributed towards my cost for camp. I was so surprised by the number of people who I did not know that wanted to help a random girl from Young Life attend camp for the first time. Although this act may have been small to some, this taught me the power of a strong community. I realized that I was not alone and that there were people who I both knew and didn't know who cared about me. We'll move a little forward. By the time it was senior year, I had gone through student leadership training, and Karina talked me through an opportunity to apply for SLP. For those who do not know, SLP stands for Student Leadership Project, and it is a selective process where Young Life student leaders can apply to attend what is kind of like a camp, but concentrated on different aspects of what it means to be a Christian leader. I had the privilege to be accepted and attend a session with around 20 other students all across the country with different backgrounds and cultures. It was an eye-opening learning experience for me to be surrounded by other members of the group and leaders, hear their stories, and realize the diversity of the backgrounds that the body of Christ has for us. The third lesson that I learned was that everyone, and I mean everyone, is a child of God. And the unconditional love of Jesus compels us to care for everyone, regardless of their differences. During the week of SLP, we were encouraged to interact with the homeless community and share a conversation about their life story and also share a meal together. It was really, really fun. I met a woman named Diana who lived on the front porch of an abandoned house in downtown Chicago, and she carried all her belongings in a single box cart. She was living on the streets because she could not afford to live anywhere near the city. Despite how sad it was for me to see that she was unable to support herself, she prayed for me and rejoiced in God's presence and his love. Even though the rough circumstances, she had an immense amount of hope and love, and it made me realize that how strong and present God's love is among others. My experience with SLP has made an impact on my life that is absolutely irreversible and gave me a second chance to learn how to interact with others in a more Christ-like way. My relationship with God has been steady for a pretty long time. I went to church with my parents, attend a youth group now and then. Yet within the last few years, going to clubs, Castaway, SLP, and backpacking in the Tetons, so much fun. Except 5 days without a bathroom, I cannot tell you how hard that was. But I have grown both in my faith and have learned to celebrate his unconditional love with others. It has most prominently taught me how to be inclusive, taught me the power of community, and that everyone, no matter how different, is a child of God. As Eastern Ottawa Young Life celebrates their 25th year, I hope that we only grow stronger as a big family and continue to make an impact on others as it did for me. Thank you.